And it's a pretty exciting morning indeed. I'm actually more than anticipating finally seeing the big debut of these EU SCL teams.
And with the way that they've been going, I mean, we're going to be starting off the first set of the day is going to be the two relegated teams. But what we've seen in North America just shows that relegations doesn't really show anything. Strictly Business was relegated out, or was going into, and now they're sitting up near the top.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things to consider, especially since it is going to be actually CAZ Esports facing off against Area Eternity. But before anything else, and before we really break off into the Smite action, I hope you guys enjoyed that quick little video. The Sennheiser headsets, I mean, they're working out great.
Yeah, the great audio, great microphones, as you can see. And when it comes down to it, they give us great products, so when it comes through it. But we also, I think, have some promotions to go through before we get into the games as well. We're going to be looking forward with, we have 2x Odyssey stuff.
And 2x everything is pretty much the main thing to keep an eye out for. If you've got boosters, now is the time to use them. You're going to be able to get 2x the Worshippers, Favor, XP, all around. Pretty solid lookout.
And it's just one of those things. Benefits you, benefits us, benefits everything when it comes down to it. And we also have some tickets available for HRX. If you've been watching the Pro League, the Console League, anything from Paladins, anything from hi-rez, you can always pick up your tickets at hi-rezexpo.com. And you need to get those fast because they are selling out quick.
I mean, Worlds is always the place to be whenever January rolls around, and that's exactly what all of these teams are even working for to begin with. Same thing for the console side, like what we've seen from PC. You want to just have and make sure that these players are all preparing for Worlds. They all know exactly what's on the line, and this fall split has been a really important one so far.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to be important for a lot of the console players. We've seen the NA players play for a couple weeks now. EU, though, kicking off today. They only have 4 teams, so it's not as big of a competition overall, but they still have to work hard to get there.
And quite a few familiar faces as well in EU. I mean, like we already mentioned, it's going to be CAZ Esports versus Area Eternity to start everything off. But right after that, you're going to be seeing Rival, and that's probably a team that some people are a little bit more familiar with, and they're going to be playing against Enix.
And they're one of those teams that sits at the top. They make their mistakes, they have some trouble, but they tend to float and gravitate up, and we see them kind of come in, and when the competition gets going, they know how to kind of focus up, go forward. And the same thing can be said for some of the other teams, but Rival just seems to have that metal going for them.
Rival is such a seasoned team, and they are just so experienced with their gameplay. I mean, a lot of these players switching over from PC, also bringing in that sort of experience, which is really beneficial towards their team environment as far as game strategy is concerned. But what I'm really keeping an eye out for in all these teams is that we know that there is a difference in competition when it comes to European teams versus North American. But Europe in general, if they want to improve their own development as far as competitiveness in a region is concerned, they've got to work against each other first. And that is one thing that has become really evident so far, is that I would definitely say the skill level and the learning curve for EU has gotten significantly higher.
And it's one of those things, I mean, we've seen it in the Pro League. Europe tends to be the one that kind of cultivates the next meta going forward in a sometimes playing catch-up. The Console League going to be trying to figure out whether or not Europe is going to be ahead or not. And starting out, I mean, with CAZ Esports, again, these two teams coming from the relegations, they have a lot on their plate. They were almost taken out of the league. They were almost not good enough, but they're able to find their way back. They've kind of revamped their rosters just enough to be able to come into this next split, hoping to push themselves up above where Rival is.
And that's exactly the place that these teams want to be sitting at. And speaking of which, we're going to be able to jump right into the picks and bans for these two teams. And I'm really keeping an eye out for the Hunter duo lanes on both sides. We're pretty familiar with Rival, or with Atonement. I shouldn't say Rival Atonement. He used to be with Rival, and that gave him quite a little bit of experience. But I really want to see how he faces off against Lyzurrr over on CAZ, or over on Era, excuse me, because these two different kind of play styles, I do feel as though Atonement might not be as aggressive as he used to be, a little bit more team-oriented now. And with that in mind, you really want to try and give your duo lane as much of an edge as possible. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Era looking a little bit more towards the early game draft.
Yeah, I'm looking to try and give their duo lane just a little bit of a boost there. It's going to be the Terra being banned out with the Raven. Odin is the main one that always comes out. It's a main console thing, but Odin is very devastating on console just because he's relatively easy to combo down. You don't have to worry too much about the controls getting out away from you, but also the lockdown, the cage, is always going to be useful. Yeah,
the box guys have always loved their Odin. I mean, AoE in general, you can never really go wrong with it. And speaking of which, Skadi making her way into what could possibly be the mid lane or the duo lane. That is a potential flex pick there for CAZ. So That's an interesting lookout, but I'm loving the Erlang Shen because whether or not that's going to be solo or jungle, it'll have a very strong boxing matchup opportunity against the Osiris.
And I mean, you were mentioning flex picks when it comes down to it. Skadi, Erlang, like, is this solo, is this jungle, is this mid, is this ADC? We don't really know what to draft against this going into it. Era kind of having to lean on what will they be comfortable with going forward. Sobek, Camazotz going to be grabbed up. So Osiris, not necessarily a flex pick, can kind of go both, but we will be seeing this Camazotz come out, and we've seen him be widely successful so far.
Camazotz has a ton of early game pressure. That's probably one of the more things that he's known for, and one other aspect to consider about the Camazotz is that it's really hard to avoid getting hit by his second ability when you got a Sobek pluck also pulling you into places you don't want to be in. I'm loving the anti-heal possibilities here, especially since they're playing into a draft like Erlang and Hercules.
Yeah, with the Hercules being picked up and being picked into the Sobek, a lot of people kind of underestimate the fact that they have the built-in anti-heal there, but even just grabbing a couple items at that point on top of it, all of a sudden this Hercules, he's not as tanky. He's a little bit easier to deal with. No matter where he is going to be kind of frontlining, he's not going to be as big a deal to take down.
And with the Ganesha being locked in, it does lead me to believe that it's probably going to be an Erlang Shen in the solo lane, or excuse me, in the jungle, and Hercules in the solo lane. Just seems a little bit more team-oriented as far as setup is concerned in the early game stride, but Scylla and Ram, there's a ton of late game potential for Era already.
Yeah, a lot of it. Camazotz kind of carry them through that early game and then push down when you have the Scylla and the Ram. You're going to have some hard carries when it comes down to it. On the other side, we finally get to see a Janus. Doesn't get picked up too often, but a very strong mage and hits really hard when done properly.
Janus is one of those gods where it's a little bit more of a niche whether you're going to bring it out or not. I would definitely consider it a slight pocket pick, but considering that the mid laner is Elexum for CAZ, I'm not too surprised since this seems a little bit more towards his god pool.
And with that, we'll be, transitioning, seeing how exactly they will be able to handle these gods going into it. And we do get to see the Skadi will be over there on Atonement. You were mentioning, his aggression, kind of pulling it back a little bit, but still possibly going to be an issue here, especially with Skadi. She has a decent enough getaway, kind of, but it's still going to hurt if she gets caught out.
I like what Era did, though, to try and compensate for the pressure that they're going to be expecting from that Skadi, because Skadi Ganesha is probably one of the best duo lane clears that you could find in the game, although it is Atonement starting by himself. Same story for Lyzurrr, and it's an excellent way still for both of them, because Lyzurrr, with the Astral Arrows, is going to have enough clear to kind of keep up with Atonement.
And even with the Bumbas on Atonement, he's not going to get enough heals to really be coming into this lane at the same rate, but with Calder there to kind of help him get the buffs out, he's not too worried going into this lane. But again, the aggression is going to be the big thing. He has an early game advantage going up against the Ram. If he decides to push that, he can try to maybe find some early solo kills. But once Lyzurrr starts getting those ults online, things start to get a little shaky over there.
The main difference here is that Atonement actually opted to clear out his own purple buff, not waiting for anybody else to come and borrow a little bit of XP from that. So with that in mind, he should be hitting level 5 slightly before Lyzurrr, and that could be potentially devastating for Lyzurrr if he gets caught out in that Skadi ultimate.
And so with the way things have been going, I see a lot of the teams actually working together here, splitting their experience relatively efficiently. But with the roster change-ups, what exactly do you expect to see? I mean, CAZ being able to pick up Atonement, being able to pick up a couple other players after relegations, we've seen them be somewhat successful, being able to make it back into the lead. Do you expect them to try and push this, or are they going to try to hold out for the late game as well?
Well, it's been a little bit of time since relegations happened, and this roster has had that time since to really work on things, hold that thought. The Rogue in a lot of trouble, really trying to get away, but Maloaise able to chase him down with the sprint for the first blood.
Not able to get that stun off, trying his best to stay alive, and normally we'd see that the other way around, the Camazotz providing that early pressure, but there's just something to be said about Hercules and Erlang. They can put you down into the ground if things don't go your way.
At least Overpowered had his teammates' blood pool to get a little bit of regen off of. That's always one positive. Got to look at the bright side sometimes.
Being able to kind of heal up. Maybe he can get that and turn it around, but with that, they're going to be losing a little bit of control of the right-hand jungle. Not a lot to be said. They're just going to lose some of the experience overall, but it's going to slowly but surely start ticking up. It's not a big lead right now, but CAZ have been able to kind of take it away. It's over 1,000, but still something that is surmountable.
As far as laning phase is concerned, I'm expecting CAZ to have the better end of things. They just have so much more pressure to put in every single aspect of their lanes. It's just really difficult right now for Era to try and fight into this. They've got to just accept their flaws in the early game and really just wait it out, try to buy enough time for the mid to late.
And we had mentioned it, when it comes down to it, Scylla, Ram going to be able to kind of carry him through there. Osiris is going to make his debut once he starts rotating out of that solo lane. Of course, first blood being onto him is going to make it a little bit rough to get there, but he'll still be able to find his way. It's really going to be kind of him being able to counter the healing. Once Hercules makes that rotation as well, he's going to be a big part of those team fights.
You can tell Rogue is actually struggling a little bit, just now hitting level 5 in comparison to Mr. Turtle, who's already sitting at 6. And with the lead that Mr. Turtle has developed, and on Hercules especially, you would anticipate him to abuse this as much as possible. Look for those rotations with Maloaise. Wouldn't be surprised to see CAZ also looking for early invades.
So the one thing I'm noticing, at least coming out from CAZ here, is the fact that they've put Switch here in the mid lane to kind of give Elexum maybe a fallback to come into it, but as well, going forward with it, it's going to give them a little extra push to kind of help deal with the fact that Scylla's going to be just a little bit better than the Janus this early on.
And that's just one of the smaller aspects that you just have to accept the minor downplays of your draft early on. But Era are a team that have been around long enough and they've been playing together long enough to where they can kind of expect these shortcomings and just work to build around them.
Speaking of mid lane, though, and looking at it, the way things have been going, we see Sirduckbot just kind of starting up with the tier 2 item. Instead of going for kind of a standard, grabbing a starter item, maybe grabbing some boots to get a little bit of extra movement speed like we see Elexum doing, do you think going for that Book of Thoth early is going to be better for the Scylla?
For the Scylla, potentially, he clearly feels a little bit more comfortable, and Scylla already having that escape makes it a bit harder to punish her for such a potentially greedy build. And Scylla actually not too common for the Book of Thoth Rush, but if it works, it works, and he's already managed to build it and get it up and running. So now it's just about acquiring whatever stacks he can and getting those Pem boots online.
Being able to farm so far has been the thing that's working best for CAZ. Only 1 kill on the board, but as you can see, like their gold lead up at the top, just slowly but surely ticking up more and more. They're splitting very efficiently, and they're kind of keeping themselves just ahead enough that they don't have to worry too much about what Era is going to be pushing out.
Since this is technically week 1 for EU, that is, I mean, North American teams have been playing, but for Europe, they know that with a little bit less time to work in, every single set is probably the most, it's just as important as the next. And with that in mind, Elexum actually getting poked out pretty severely by TylrrK. Sirduckbot looking for the chase down, forcing out the Janus ultimate.
Yeah, being able to use that through space and time gets him out of danger, but it gets through space and time completely off the board. They no longer have to worry about that, but Maloaise is going to be coming through. Not a lot of aggression for Lyzurrr. Overpowered in the backline, waiting for a chance to go forward, but at the same time, both of them just a little bit too late on their rotations.
That can be a pretty difficult skill shot to land as well on the Camazotz. Very linear attack. You got to get that flick of the, I guess, finger just right. A little bit different compared to PC, but I do appreciate the aggression, though, out of Era, really trying to pressure a little bit of the advantage if they find that a member from CAZ is ganking a different lane.
And with that, there's still a small advantage. Overpowered, I can tell he wants to fight. He wants to find where exactly he can pinpoint and just find the hole in the armor. He wants to be able to go in and take down CAZ. He's going to get knocked up, but it's not going to be a big deal. Turtle just kind of flexing, saying, hey, I'm over here. Just recognize it. Don't get aggressive.
Overpowered had a nice little juke out of the unstable vortex, but still got to be careful trying to contest these right mid harpies. Maloaise has made his rotation over, but the root from Sirduckbot probably going to save his jungler from eating a little bit more poke than what he would have wanted.
Going to be able to find the root, and the Janus trying to find the damage, but Bat Out of Hell going to be coming down, trying to get anything, but he's just not strong enough at this point. He's a level behind the Erlang. Maybe if he had put the aggression onto Elexum, might have found a little bit more, but he's just not strong enough at this point in the game for an early game center and pressure that he's going to be giving as a Camazotz. This is not a good spot to be in.
And check out the zoning from Mr. Turtle trying to stop TylrrK, actually destroying TylrrK as his team tried to invade the buff.
Through space and time going to be coming through. Overpowered, trying to run away, but the pillar's going to keep him slow, and he's going to go down, but the tier 2 tower might be enough. The portal off the mark, but it will end up finding him as he jukes right into it, and that's going to be 3 kills now on the board for CAZ as as they are abusing the lead they have been able to make and pushing themselves even further ahead. The silence coming down from Switch just to get some zoning, and Duckbot and Rogue don't really have a leg to stand on.
Mr. Turtle is just entirely too massive already. Looking to keep abusing this lead. Rogue T in a lot of trouble, forcing through the Osiris ultimate, really just trying to get away and forced to play so defensively. It's just a win all across. And if your team can afford to dive a T2 tower prior to 8 minutes into a match, it's a pretty substantial lead.
They're going to be able to take 2 kills, 2 buffs, and return to confirm their own jungle. Just be able to pick some things up and keep themselves comfortable. Elexum, possibly a target, but there's just not a lot. TylrrK has been looking for those plucks. He's just been slightly off the mark almost every time. Hasn't been able to take control of this Janus, and even with the lane, if he throws him in the wrong spot, a portal gets him out. And
that's the exact problem that Era seem to be encountering, is the mobility of CAZ Esports is pretty significant right now. Maloaise, yet again, using that early game Erlang to just pressure out Overpowered, take away those fire elementals, and keep the global gold in CAZ's favor.
And again, the glory really coming down for the Camazotz. Maybe your team is dying a lot, but you at least have these blood pools to kind of heal up from the poke you're taking as you rotate through the jungle. No early game pressure on the Gold Fury just yet, although CAZ are potentially in a position where they could try to force a fight. Era don't really have anything to control that area.
CAZ might not want to look for the Gold Fury super early on. If anything, they'll look for the fight around it, like you mentioned. But as for trying to commit to the objective, probably won't be possible unless Sirduckbot is nowhere near that Gold Fury pit, because he probably has the best contest in the game right now for that objective.
That, and with everyone kind of grouping around, once that I'm a Monster comes out, everything gets a little bit more scary. So depending on how they want to do it, I've seen a lot of players, you can force that out depending on how slow you want to make them, depending on how much you want to chase them down, but they're not going to be able to catch Sirduckbot out just yet. Era are playing this smart. They recognize they're behind. They recognize that they haven't been able to win the engagements that they've been going for, and so they're keeping themselves just a little bit more patient. They want to farm up more.
And these roots have just been on point from Sirduckbot so far. Maloaise trying to use that Mink of the 72 transformations to get a lot of free poke onto him, but Sirduckbot shutting that one down quickly. And more I look at it, the more you just realize how incredible CAZ's draft actually is. It's just their engage and their disengage is practically impossible to handle.
The Gold Fury started up by Era, trying to bait out anything through space and time, going to be shot through, and CAZ is just going to go ahead and back off. They're like, hey, we have the aggression, we have the ability to just drop into the point, but we're going to fall back as it looks like Rogue on the other side of the map is getting pressured out of his own jungle once again. That's going to allow those buffs to go for CAZ. They're going to be able to kind of farm up and continually put this pressure down and keep Era on their toes.
And that's all that Mr. Turtle really needs to be doing. Level 12 Hercules already prepared to pick up his second relic, but again, going back to that statement, it's just anytime TylrrK is looking for the initiation, there is a Ganesh silence to shut him down. There is Mr. Turtle with the knockback, and speaking of which, it's already gone. Gold Fury actually just completely destroyed by CAZ.
And with no vision in the area, Era, they're going to notice it because of that sound cue, but they're not going to be very happy about it. Like you had said, they have some of the best contest for it. And Sirduckbot was nowhere to be found. Portal Demon already at half HP. It looks like CAZ are going to drop that one because they recognize I'm a Monster's still up. We don't want to put too much pressure on this and let him steal it away. But they're still walking away with the free Gold Fury.
And that bounty is only going to increase the gold lead. Having a 5K gold lead pretty much. Or it's a little bit more than 4K, but it's still pretty painful to deal with at just around 12 minutes. And the experience, that's the primary difference here. 7,000 in favor of CAZ.
Yeah, a lot of people like to look at the gold numbers, but when you can see how much experience makes a difference, I mean, you can look at the levels just down. There's 3-level difference there in the jungle. Overpowered not having anywhere near the pressure you would expect from a Camazotz this early on.
And that's kind of just one of the downfalls, though, of having that early invades to your jungle off cooldown. Yeah. It was excellently executed by CAZ. They made sure that they had at least 4 members available every single time they ventured into Era's jungle. And because of that, there was just too much pressure for Era to deal with across the board.
One thing coming out and kind of surprising me when it comes down to it is a lot of players, sometimes PC likes to run this, sometimes the Challenger players like to run this, but the console player opting in, Elexum has built a Doom Orb on this Janus.
Doom Orb, I've kind of been seeing a little bit more action from as of late. Even a few PC pro players started to lean towards this And I feel as though you can get a significant benefit off of it, especially on a god that's as safe as Janus. Elexum being able to have so many different escape routes makes it incredibly difficult for even a Camazotz to try and chase him down.
And it's one of those things, it's really high risk, high reward if you can get it going. And when you can just walk through walls, it doesn't really matter too much as the damage coming down. Mr. Turtle wants to just continue. He wants to find a solo kill here, but with the 4-man rotation to the solo lane, he might be able to spot it out. He might just kind of be able to sniff out, there's no reason Rogue should be trying to fight me at this point. He's going to fall back, and ultimately we're going to see those 3 rotate back into the mid lane.
Yeah, Rogue looking like he just called the cops right there, considering how many people were grouped around trying to take out Mr. Turtle, but recognizing that there's not much aggression they can really follow up with, same story might not be said for Overpowered, getting a little bit of a heal off of that second ability, which is pretty nice, but it might not even matter. The Bluestone ticks are going to be enough to take out Overpowered from Atonement's rotation.
And now we're going to see CAZ pushing forward into the speed buff. And again, at this point, you're just taking them on rotation. You don't have anything to worry about. What is Era going to do? You have 4 kills on top of them, and with the amount of damage we just saw Janus throw out, Elexum does not really care too much. Portal Demon going to get taken, but Duckbot going to be finding a return kill onto Switch. Very low health, almost hit by the through space and time boulder over the wall. Not going to be enough to confirm it. And he should be able to make it out alive, but it's not going to matter with Maloaise coming into the backline and making that rotation.
Check out Atonement the entire time. He's just been attacking that T1 tower, already down about 20% health. Mr. Turtle looking to knock back Rogue into a position he doesn't want to be, forced up into the Afterlife, trying to get away.
Now, not necessarily the best health bars, best mana bars coming out for Era, but they're still trying to look for a way to defend. Portal Demon, Gold Fury, both of the ones that have been taken so far have gone the way of CAZ. And while they find a return kill, they find it on the Switch. They find it onto the support. It's just a Ganesha, even though he's a level ahead of your mid laner, so he's going to get a little benefit from it. It's still not that much.
And Miss Switch actually opting for an early Shogun's just to help boost the attack speed from all the members on his team. It's really going to benefit Maloaise and Atonement the most. And when you're able to rush a Jade Emperors into a Shogun's, you've got a relatively large amount of tankiness as far as physical protection is concerned. And early on for Era, they're kind of just trying to rely off of Overpowered's damage and potentially even Lyzurrr, but neither of these physical players really being able to take part of any of the team fights so far.
And we had mentioned the fact that Duckbot and Lyzurrr are going to be great to have in the late game, but they have to be able to make it to their late game. Right now, level 16, not doing too bad for Lyzurrr, but still sitting at level 12 for Sirduckbot. It's not going to be the best position, and Lyzurrr now getting collapsed on with 3 members around. No damage really being dealt until he is too low on mana to really juke this out. He's almost caught between a rock and a hard place, but the sprint going to be coming through. He walks right through those Dharmic pillars, and with the Aegis being popped as well, he's looking to try and run away, but the fight continues as through space and time takes a little bit of damage down on Sirduckbot. Era just want to get out of this one. They recognize that this is not a fight they can win, but they look like they're going to get caught out as Maloaise going to find the root, forcing Bat out of hell, all of the ultimates that they can get, and they're just going to erase TylrrK, because Bat out of hell keeps you safe, but the Sobek doing his best as a support, just not able to live too long.
It's the 50-stack Doom Orb right now that's just completely erasing members of Era Eternity. Elexum sitting at level 14, 2-0-2, Pen Boots online, full stack Doom Orb. Lyzurrr is up in the air looking to try and steal it away with an Astral Barrage, but it won't be able to make the difference this time around. Another Gold Fury going the way of CAZ Esports.
And I like the way he kind of threw him out. You could recognize he was kind of torn between, do I want to go for the Gold Fury or can I get this kill on Switch? He's able to kind of get a little bit of extra damage down. It does force Switch to stop tanking it, but at that point it was so low that it didn't matter. They just kind of switched the aggression, take the Gold Fury, bring themselves even further up. 8K right now, approaching 9K if they can continue pushing this forward. And with the tower going down and the control they have on the map, CAZ are looking to just continue keeping control.
And Atonement, he's level 17, but Lyzurrr isn't that far behind him. I think, if anything, that was actually still pretty in favor for Era Eternity. And I say that in comparing it to every other aspect of this game so far. The fact that Lyzurrr was actually able to get away with his life in that moment, despite being surrounded by 3 members of CAZ at their T1 tower line, it was great. It was great support play to just immediately rotate over. TylrrK got off the sprint that was necessary to keep his hunter alive, but Era Eternity, it's really just finding the little moments that can help them out for the long run. It's just so difficult for them to work in and around their jungle.
And it kind of shows that they do have the potential to try and bring this back. They do have the plays in their ability as players, but they have to find the right time to be able to bring those out. Everything that we have seen, even right now, just looking at the control coming out from CAZ, they're keeping Era zoned from their own jungle buffs, and there's not a lot that Era can do about it. They have the potential, they had the damage coming into this, but they just can't fight the way that Elexum is stacked, the way that we see Mr. Turtle stacked as he pushes Rogue against the wall. The Thorns are going to be forced out, and he's not going to fall just yet until Elexum finds that last tick with the help of the boulder. Overpowered going to be taunted in, erased off the board as well. TylrrK doing his best as a support to try and stay alive and save his team, and with the root from Sirduckbot, the one saving grace that the team has had so far, they're going to be able to get out with 3 members still alive.
But while that team fight was happening, Atonement was more than happy to just sit in the duo lane, looking to pressure out this T2 as much as possible. Lyzurrr started to make the rotation, but he's a little bit low on mana, and for a Skadi, this is an ideal situation. Atonement could afford to put a little bit more pressure onto this tower line, but recognizing that Lyzurrr has come back, he'll just fall back, look to clear out any buffs that might be in the jungle. And
at this point, if there's anyone that is going to be a rough spot or a rough fight for Atonement, it's probably going to be Lyzurrr. Even though he has the 2-level advantage, even though he's the Skadi with the Calder, Lyzurr's still on Ram, right? Ram still hits very hard later on. The rest of the team is grouped up over around the Portal Demon. Sirduckbot going to be going over there, doing his best to try and contest it, but it looks like the rest of CAZ are going to just kind of collapse on it. Be able to confirm that one. I'm a monster over the wall, off the mark, and just a little late. And CAZ are going to be able to kind of retreat from there. They have control. They have the Portal Demon. They have the lead still. They're not too worried about their position.
Sirduckbot had already used that I'm a monster form, so even after the Portal Demon went down, kind of just hoping that maybe a member from CAZ was backing, that he might have been able to proc some damage off onto, but with that not being the case, and now it seems as though Mr. Turtle trying to put Rogue T in a place he doesn't want to be in for what feels like the millionth time this game. It's just been so difficult all around. Rogue has just been severely focused out this game.
We were talking about the anti-heal coming into it just in the picks. Is actually Rogue T going to be forced to ult just to get over that portal so he doesn't get caught out. Still looking to run away. Mr. Turtle kind of peeking around the back corner, not going to be able to find his kill though. Still going to be looking to steal away the farm, but we were talking about the anti-heal. A Pestilence and a Brawler is going to be coming out here for Era. Do you think they might be overemphasizing the anti-heal instead of getting some power down?
Not in the slightest, because they're mostly looking to just ensure that Overpowered and Lyzurrr don't get the benefit of their sustain from the Devourer's Gauntlets and, I mean, Camazotz's abilities. And now Sirduckbot actually trying to get away, eating a huge chunk of damage. That's what happens when you're facing off against a level 20 Skadi.
And now Sirduckbot plucked back. Atonement going to be able to find that last hit. Boulder was used, not necessarily needed, but with the way things were going, Sirduckbot is going to be sitting in the timeout box for a little bit longer now as the rest of CAZ looking to try and get the aggression. Overpowered taking a ton of pokes. Still level 12 at this point, 20 minutes in. He is going to be a relatively easy target for CAZ to be able to pick off. Rogue T doing his best to be the solo laner the team needs, but he just gets poked out by Maloaise the minute he turns his attention over there.
Rogue T was following Maloaise, speaking of which, TylrrK using that pluck to get out of range. Caught inside the Dharmic Pillars though, just looking to back, and CAZ is more than happy to just let him because the T2 tower is all theirs.
9 kills to 1. 21 minutes in, right now CAZ are keeping control of this. They now have a 13k gold lead, and that's one of those numbers, that's when you start to get scared. That's 2,000 gold for at least every single member on there. A little bit more than that, and when you look at the experience as well, those numbers, they start to seem a little scary. That's a pretty big mountain to climb.
A 17,000 experience disparity at 21 minutes and climbing is, you don't really come back from that, and it's only getting worse. 18,000 now in favor of CAZ Esports, and it goes to show across the board. I mean, Overpowered is barely level 12. Era just doing everything they can right now, trying to rush down this fire giant. Switch going to be making the call out to his team though, and all the damage is coming through. CAZ won't be able to steal that one away, but they might be able to kill everybody on Era for taking it.
Yeah, they're going to come through. 2 already down. Rogue T getting chased down. 1 more hit is all it's going to take. Switch doing his best to find it, but the slow going to be coming through. Turtle, though, with the rotation and running around, going to be able to help find that one. Sirduckbot's low. He's hiding in the Gold Fury pit. He's running away from his base to be able to find a safe place to back. And he's going to be able to find that, but now CAZ are knocking down the middle lane, looking for this first Phoenix. And at this point, it looks like it's going to fall. Even without a Fire Giant, they should have the damage and the ability to be able to take this. 22 minutes in, they're going to be knocking this one down. And now falling back. They got 3 kills. They recognize the respawn timers are coming up. Still going to play it a little safe, even with that big of a lead. They're going to go ahead, take that tier 2 tower on the left-hand side. and extend their gold lead even further.
There's only one T2 remaining for Era Eternity, and it's not really much of a defense hold for them either. CAZ are just so drastically far ahead right now. If Era Eternity is most likely chalking this one up as a loss and just looking to focus on what they can do to improve for the second game.
And there's two kind of players, or two kind of teams, I should say, when it comes to this kind of scenario. There's the team that, I don't want to get tilted, let's F6, go into the next one. And then there's the team that's, let's use this time, we know we're going to lose. What did we do wrong? What can we do in the next game in picks and bans when we start out that will change this scenario so we don't see this happen again?
You gotta appreciate the attempt by Era Eternity to take away that Fire Giant. At the very least, it bought them another 5 or 7 minutes because it's a Fire Giant that CAZ won't have to automatically siege everything for free. Granted, they still managed to take down the Phoenix because there's really nobody left to defend. Sirduckbot and Lyzurrr are the only 2 remaining members with that Fire Giant buff around them, and Sirduckbot, he's just so far behind, sitting at level 14. It's really only Lyzurrr that has the same boxing potential against CAZ, and even then, he's only 18.
And Overpowered kind of sitting in that backline as well. Level 13 still, not a lot of health to be able to sustain yourself, even with healing, even being able to be this Camazotz, even having some blood pools when your teammates end up falling. You don't have enough to survive through these fights. And as we can see, Era taking the call. They're going to go ahead and fall back. That tier 2 tower is going to be the last one, and it's going to be the one that falls. No towers left, 1 Phoenix down, and they are looking to do their best to try and defend this base. They don't really have any push to go for this Portal Demon. And the Gold Fury comes up in 2.5 or 2 minutes. They might be able to try and make a play for it. They might be able to go in for the steal with Sirduckbot, but as it stands, they don't have a lot of in until that Fire Giant comes back up.
They might not even have a lot of in even when the Fire Giant is back because Overpowered, it's just going to be practically impossible for him to get the levels that he needs to present himself as an opponent really against CAZ right now. He's just so far behind. And it's because once CAZ were able to take such strong control of the map, he lost every single part of his jungle. And when a jungler is that deprived of farm, you just expect this to be an issue.
So both of the solo laners in this matchup have decided to pick up Thorns, which is something that I don't think we normally see. I mean, it's one that's fluctuated in and out depending on it, but I think for Mr. Turtle, it's working out relatively well because he's going to be that frontliner.
Well, for Xbox at least, I've noticed that Thorns seems to be a little bit more prevalent, and that's partially due to the fact that people just tend to dump all their damage in. Speaking of which, Mr. Turtle not opting to proc his Thorns off just yet, but Era Eternity look like they really want to hold off this Firebird in the right-hand lane.
Just patiently waiting for it, and they don't want to aggress because they know the minute they step out of that Phoenix line, everything goes downhill for them. And CAZ recognized that as a 6th man, this Phoenix can do a lot of damage if you do not focus properly. And this is where objectives kind of play their role in Smite. If you go in and your team is entirely focused on taking down the Phoenix, they'll be able to do it, but they're going to go in and focus down Rogue T right now. He's forced out the back, knocked up by Switch, and they're just trying to keep some control. TylrrK doing whatever he can, lurking in the waters, but he's just not going to be able to live long enough to accomplish anything for his team, except for a little bit of zoning, maybe prolonging the life of that Phoenix just enough. But we see Overpowered forced to use his ult to get out. Sirduckbot in a similar position. His ult is down. The beads coming through just to get away, but being chased into the base by Maloaise. A lot of return damage, though. This is actually where Lyzurrr plays his role.
And Lyzurrr actually finding the kill onto Maloaise, but unable to defend that right-hand tower. But the shots! The Astral Barrage to take out Elexum.
Being able to find that switch now very low, and it looks like the chase may be on, but we do see Atonement doing his best to try and box down Sirduckbot. This is actually the exact play that Era have needed, the defense they wanted. They still lose the Phoenix, but they survive the middle Phoenix, and they pick up some kills. Sirduckbot 1 hit away, Mr. Turtle chasing him down, but the roots that have been so good this game, with one single defense, they essentially fight their way, not necessarily back into it. They haven't taken the lead, but they show that they are not just laying down for this defeat.
It also shows that Lyzurrr can be a problem, and I wouldn't be surprised if CAZ decided to make him the next target at the very start of the engagement. That was actually a really strong through space and time by Elexum. Hold that thought, though. Mr. Turtle not done quite yet, trying to find this kill all by himself, and he will. The ultimate just taking out any hopes Era might have had of their Hunter surviving.
Is it still soloed if you're fighting 1v2? Like, because it's not a 1v1. So coming into it, I mean, Mr. Turtle able to find the kill that he wanted there and prioritizing Lyzurrr exactly the way he needed to. Rogue T doing his best to try and fight back, and the same thing came out for pretty much everyone who decided to rotate over there for Era. But they just find themselves having to fall back. Just one lone Hercules, even with all the anti-heal that they have built up and being able to bring into it. I mean, we even see now the Divine Ruin being picked up. They're just not able to deal with it.
It's Mr. Turtle, sure, it looked like a 1v2 if you're talking about the direct view, but it felt like a 1v5 personally. There isn't really anything that Overpowered could have done in that scenario to really assist his ADC there.
And while they weren't able to get the Fire Giant last time, they were able to get the timer. And now it's going to be 5 members ahead with a gold lead, with an experience lead, with a Fire Giant lead now. 1 Phoenix down, 1 Phoenix going to be right now sitting at about half health, still kind of healing up. But CAZ are looking to try and find their way into the closer here and try to find the final kill that they need. And with this, the team fights are going to be kind of swayed in their favor. The Fire Giant going to be providing a nice buff to this.
And this is just one of those instances where CAZ played this game so fluidly. They went from one objective to the next, never really taking a moment for hesitation. As soon as they established map control and presence, they never really let up on that pressure, which is exactly what their composition was meant to accomplish. Anytime you're running a double warrior comp as aggressive as Erlang, Shen, and Hercules, you kind of just have to never let up with the gas pedal.
Now they're looking to try and put that pedal to the metal and go for this left-hand Phoenix as they go in. They're getting the exact poke they need to keep Era on the back line and find their way into the Phoenix. Again, it's going to deal a decent amount of damage, but with all the Fire Giant they have and with the tankiness that Mr. Turtle and Switch have been able to amass with this gold lead, they're not too worried about what it can do. Atonement, main priority. Get rid of that Phoenix. Don't look for the damage. Rogue T recognizing this, going to go into the backline, but he doesn't find himself caught out because of it. A lot of damage going to be thrown into him, and that's just going to be 1 death, and Overpowered doing his best, but his best just isn't going to be enough here. The Phoenix is going to fall through space and time, coming down. The knock-up, Lyzurrr going to be the target for Mr. Turtle. He is hungry for those kills. The mid Phoenix is the target for the rest of his team, trying to find the end. They're going to take the 3rd bird. While we've seen some teams come back from this, it's just not always the case.
And it's not going to be an easy one at all for Era to try and hold them off. Only Lyzurrr and Sirduckbot as the main members that are looking for the damage output necessary to take down CAZ.
Now, patiently waiting, going to come in. Fire Giant still strong on all 5 members. The Titan health ticking down already at half. We see the Alma Monster come through. A lot of damage onto Maloaise and to Mr. Turtle. They're trying to find it, but just not in time there. They're going to end up losing it. The Titan falling in the good old-fashioned way, and CAZ going to be able to take that first victory.
Just a little bit more than 30 minutes as well, and like I mentioned, just so clockwork by CAZ the entire time. It was just pure domination, and that's just one of those instances, again, where CAZ kind of just took their advantages where they could find them and just kept that pressure going the entire time, making it really difficult for Overpowered to find any of the necessary farm to bounce back into that one.
And we had seen a lot of things go the way of CAZ. Early on, we were actually mentioning the fact that while Duckbot was on Scylla and while we saw Lyzurrr on that Ram, they had some late game going for it, but they still had some early game pressure. But the late game pressure that was really going on was Elexum on the Janus. With that Doom Orb, he was able to keep a lot of control. I mean, you can even see here the portal, the perfect placement for it, just to put Overpowered so he jukes into it. And the damage he was able to output with everything, his through space and time, his unstable vortex, everything that he threw out just chunked the members of Era.
All those unstable vortexes was really just destroying the members of Era Eternity. TylrrK, I mean, in that clip, that was only just one example of the amount of damage that Elexum was able to output onto Era. And so, realistically speaking, though, Elexum played this Janus pick excellently because he made sure to watch his positioning at all times. He was constantly at the back end of his team, hanging out on that back line, looking to just drop the portals, drop the unstable vortexes, and combo them off of his own team's gameplay.
And being able to utilize pretty much everything you would want the Janus to be able to do. He's able to kind of buff his teammates' movement speed from the back line, like you said, throw out all of the damage he had. And at the end of it, he was doing really, really well. Like just starting on, once he built that Doom Orb, he never lost those stacks.
He started off the match just looking for the disengage with the portals and helping his team move on and off across the map. And that, to me, speaks very highly of his Janus gameplay because that's what you want to look for in a Janus. You know that you're not going to have a super hard advantage in the early game. So if you can use their portals to just help your team get in there, that's exactly what he did for Mr. Turtle and for Maloaise, and it worked out beautifully.
But I will say the solo jungle combo was, I think, kind of what started it off for CAZ as they kind of went forward, just because they got that early aggression. But with that was only game number 1. We do have another one. We have plenty of matches for the day as we kind of look at it. Right now, we're in CAZ versus Era. After this, we'll be going to the other 2 EU teams with Rival and Enix, and then we're back in NA.
And North America, they're probably ready to get everything going. I mean, a lot of exciting matches for North America today. More particularly, keeping an eye on that Obey versus Strictly Business matchup. And Astral versus Elevate as well should be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, both of them, I mean, all 4 of those teams at this point kind of vying for the top. And even looking at Soar and In Memory of Michael, they're at the bottom, but Soar was one of those rosters that has been towards the top, maybe having just a rough early 2 weeks, looking to try and change that for week 3. And with the way things have been going for Europe, it just shows that even though you might be at the bottom, you can rise up to the top. These 2 teams, again, we're in relegations for anyone who hasn't been paying attention or couldn't remember at this point, but they're being able to kind of come back in and looking pretty strong on the side of CAZ.
And CAZ has made leaps and bounds in my eyes, at least as far as facing off against these other European teams. I mean, even though it's Era Eternity, it's still a very formidable matchup. And right now, I think that the primary issue for Era was that the game just spiraled a little bit too out of control. I think that they will have a solid opportunity to bounce back, but they need to orient a little bit more towards that early game, not putting as much pressure for the mid and late.
And